everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of No Bullshit Talks. It's an absolute honor to have my guest on the show today, Ms. Nadya Ortiz, who is not only a women's chess grandmaster, but a software developer at Apple, which is super cool. So welcome today.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you and share a little bit of my story.
Yes, I want to talk about that. So you grew up in Colombia, which is super cool. Although I feel like the rest of the public probably doesn't have a real view of what Colombia is like. Because I swear every storyline in a movie is that you're just shipping drugs over to the US. So I want to talk about that because you live in California now, right? So which is a totally different scene. But what is growing up in Colombia really like? I'm guessing you're not all drug pushers, and there's probably more to that. There's other drug pushers and Shakira. She's Colombian, isn't she?
Yeah.
That's about my entire knowledge of Colombia right there. It's like cocaine and Shakira. So tell us more about what Colombia is actually like growing up.
Yeah, I think this is one it's hard because unfortunately, as a human beings, we have a lot of stereotypes. We have unconscious bias, and including myself too, right? Like we tend to judge, and then so when they see in the airports Colombia, and they do like a double check. And always there is this uncomfortable question is like, well, so how much drug do you have you tried? Like, none. Like, it's not, it's this image that can be presented. And sadly, we have a period in our history that is there, cannot be erased, but we can learn from that, which is, the period of, Pablo Escobar and but that is not only Colombia, right? So, every time they ask about Colombia is, we have, and not what we have some Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which is a famous writer. We have Shakira. And the country by itself is beautiful. As we were hit by the guerrilla, but the beauty of the countryside is a lovely country. That is not perfect, of course. It is, like every country under development, it has difficulties. And in my case, it shapes who I am. So I grew up in a very low income area. We have sadly the classism in Colombia is really bad. They divide there is something like stratification, so they divide neighborhoods by numbers, and that's really bad. But it shaped me. My family gave me these values that, because it's not all about money, but it's about who you are. And then I feel grateful to have grown up in Colombia, especially with a lovely family that there are different type of richness. And for me, that was one of them. That is, love and being together. And you see that in communities, that low-income communities, that it's really because there is not much to do too. So it's like you also have to be, try to find the ways to be together. So yeah, that shaped me, and that's where I grew up, and I've been very thankful to have grown up in such a neighborhoods. It's with so many difficulties, but it really helped me with the person who I am right now.
That's so beautiful. I mean, there's probably so many people who, if they listen to this and they come from money, and they're probably thinking, I would trade that, right? They'd be like, I'd trade love for the money that I have, because lots of times I've spoken to people who grew up with money. They grew up in a wealthy family, but their parents never had time to spend with them because they were out making money for them. And, I think that everyone who comes from a loving, caring family really, really appreciates that. Well, I say everyone, that's not true. Lots of people don't appreciate their parents or their family. But, I think, I certainly do. We've spoken about this before, haven't we? We're saying that we wouldn't be where we are today without our parents, and they were like role models growing up. And you can tell that, being from a family like that, it means a lot to people, and I think it's beautiful. But tell me, so you're chess grandmaster, which is no small feat, and I believe you're the only female grandmaster in Colombia. Is that right?
It is. No, I was the first one.
Okay.
There is another one. There's another woman grandmaster. I mean, sadly, she has been not playing too much. And we have actually a woman who became were woman grandmaster, but she was an international master for men.
Mm.
But the same problem too, right? Like then you have to work. There is, more things to do. So, but I was the first one.
That's awesome. And I just think that, Colombia isn't necessarily known for its chess, right? It's not something that. So how did you get into it? What inspired you to take it up and then become so strong?
So, the journey, as everything, it was not like a straight line. It was really a lot of failures, years, and bumps, ups and downs. First, as my dad, he's. I always say that I was a professional of chess. He's a fan of chess. Right? He's someone that, even to this day, he can play all day, right? Is super fan of chess and he loved the game, and so he has this. He did pass this passion to me, right? And sometimes it's explicit, sometimes it's implicit, right? Like the kids do what your parents are doing at home, right? So my dad was always playing chess. So I thought that was extremely cool, and I do love the game. It was funny. Yesterday I was going and Jennifer Chakash invited me to Judith Polgar was doing this famous ceremony. And she's like, you can pass by like, 5-10 minutes. And I stayed like 5 hours because it's so nice. It was so beautiful. And then I feel bad that I was even commenting and I was like, no, I was not expecting to do that. But the game is lovely. And I think there's another privilege that I had that when you love something, then you can spend as many hours as you want, right? And that was a privilege because then I have this work ethics given by my parents that I work probably 2 times or 3 times more than the average that at that time we had, right? And I think that was giving the difference. So I used to wake up extremely early even before going to school, train in the afternoon, and that was what helped me to start creating this gap in Colombia. And then I decided Colombia nowadays is different, right? Now we have YouTubers, podcasts, and so many things. But before Colombia was really hard. You barely have tournaments. So I knew I have to go out. So then I spent like almost 5 years just as a professional. So I was 16 and until I was, 4 or 5 years, like 20, before 21, just playing chess around the world. So it was surviving mode, but it was great because I got invitations for different tournaments, and then I kind of mainly stayed in Europe, like Spain, but did my training in Cuba too. But then I was playing around the world, training, and I have this goal to become the first woman grandmaster. So it was many years, but I think it paid off. I didn't become grandmaster at that time. I got a scholarship, and it was after I got the scholarship, I think mentally I was more prepared. But that's how I started with chess, thanks to my dad. Then I went to this professional chess career that now is easy to explain because a lot of people watch the Queen's Gambit. Before I have to give like a whole intro.
I know people would say you can do that as a thing. Yeah. Like what? Like that was definitely my reaction too when
it was crazy because like, what do you mean chess? It's like chess again. Like you mean like living? Like like, you live for chess. So it was funny. And then at the end, I was like, I got my green card with chess. I was like, what? So it was very, and now it's different. Now it's I miss not being in the chess world sometimes. It's nice that the Queen's Gambit gave another point of view of chess and how they see chess and how they see women in chess too. So that was the journey. So I was starting with my dad and I work extremely hard even to these days. I think that's one of I remember hearing Casper that working hard is a talent too, because no one worked that hard. And then I actually learned that. And then freshman, then got the scholarship, and that's how kind of then chess started getting towards the studies.
you said you were 15, 16, like when you started touring Europe. How did you afford that? Because people don't realize chess is expensive. Like it's really expensive to fly to different tournaments. Like you're not working at that age, like, you know, and that's the other thing. People don't get the amount of time you need to invest to become a chess grandmaster. It is, it's not just the studying. It's not just, you know, all that sort of stuff, but the playing and like, you know, the actual, you have to go to specific tournaments in order to get the requirements, in order to get those norms. And it's just like there's only a few that you can qualify for. And it's a really time consuming process, but it's expensive, really expensive. So at that age, how are you affording to do this?
So this is also coming from low-income families, like impossible that they will pay, right? So there was one thing that also I got a scholarship in Colombia to study, and there was a big friction with my mom because my mom never had the opportunity to go to university. So she's like, "What? What you're telling me you're gonna play chess and study? Like, what is this?" But I understand it's a point of view now that if my daughter tell me I'm gonna play chess, no study. I will understand, but it will be hard to understand.
But that's so interesting that both of us feel that same way, but yet we were pro female chess players, like, and we're both like, really? Like I think like, again, the difference is both of us did it pro, but we both also have careers, and, you know, I guess we can see the other side of the coin. And so it's interesting though and it shows you that there's clearly still something wrong in the chess world, that, you know, us here as, you know, two of the strongest female players in our country still think that it's not legitimate career, not necessarily legitimate, but not rewarding enough for what it should be, considering you are at that level, and that you can't necessarily make a decent living out of it compared to say a normal job. And there's something wrong with that, right? And it's not like our fault necessarily. It's just there's something wrong in the chess world, and there have to be changes made in order to make these opportunities possible. Like there are so many talented females out there, but maybe cannot actually earn enough of a living to have a decent lifestyle. And there's something wrong with that. I think there's definitely something wrong with that.
I mean, you touch a great point, and thinking about that, my mom was always afraid of that, because the image, I mean, the only image we have had before was like Judy Polgar, right? But it's this wrong analogy, because I mean, how many Judy Polgar have?
Exactly.
Right? Like,
she's an anomaly.
It's like, I mean, to make the analogy with someone that is not in chess, it's like, well, you play soccer, you can be Lionel Messi, or you can be Cristiano Ronaldo. But like, I mean, there's so many people there. But I think the confidence that I gave to my mom is, one, I love learning, and that expand to chess, like in general knowledge, I love it. So I explained to her, maybe a little bit older when I study, but study is gonna be there. That is not gonna go away, right? Like the university is there, knowledge is there. I think also because I didn't have money, it's like, well, we don't have money anyways. It's not like, destroying this world. It's like, I don't have anything, so we can also go for that. And then I just create this plan, and I have to give, I grew up with my grandma. She died. So usually when you have parents, in your family, they work, two jobs per day, or, or the jobs is extremely long, so they cannot get home and take care of the kids. So usually grandma is the one who take care of the kids. So I grew up with my grandma, and she was a woman advanced of her time. So she didn't go to study, but she, I mean, of course, I'm biased. I was her granddaughter, but she's the one like, you don't belong to the kitchen. You belong to the books. You're gonna study. So she really helped me to believe like, I can study. I want to study. It's like, it's a matter of time. And then how I solved the problem, because I was like, well, how am I going to do it? So I started saving. I've been very like, well, if I start saving just a little bit, then I can. So in my country, they could not pay everything, right? Living in Europe is like 4 times more than living in Colombia. So what I did was got the sponsorship for the ticket. And it's like, well, as long as I got the ticket to Europe, for 3 months, until the visa was like 3 to 6 months. So I got tickets for 3 to 6 months. So like, okay, that is covered. Then I talked with so many organizers. Spain nowadays is different, but we are talking this in 2005, 2007, before 2007, like 2004, and these years that they were like, for a soccer player, Brazil, right? And they also have a lot of support. So
I remember because I think we're the same age, right? So
oh,
we grew
really?
up, yeah, we're the exact. I think we're
Okay.
born in the same year. I'm pretty sure. How have we not played in this? We must have played in the same tournaments as kids, like the World Youth Championships and stuff. Right? We'd have been in the same tournament and everything. Probably sat next to each other. I don't think we played, but like I think we were definitely at the same events. But Spain was the place, and obviously it's a much shorter flight for me to get to than for you. But it was the place to go. It was amazing. It was affordable. They had tournaments like every weekend. I feel like it was just such good quality. So did you just go out there for a few months? Is that what you did?
So what happened is they also helped me a lot. I have to give, thanks to, I play mainly, back in the Catalonia, many tournaments, but I play all over Spain, north, south, east, west, everywhere in Spain. So what happened is, so I choose tournament, well, can you give me just, just the hotel or someone, can you give hotel and the food? So in that case, you cover like a week. And then I used to play like 3 tournaments together. So then you covered like a month. And when there was a space because you needed to break, then I got help with friends of friends. And in Colombia, like they could not give me the idea is I cannot help you with money, but I have a friend, I have a family that live in Spain. You can stay there for some, I was like, I need like weeks, right? Like you have a tournament and you need like a week. And then like, that's how I cover the this hotel, the friends, then some friends from Colombia, they rent an apartment, like, well, we can divide it. And then, I pay, just, you need just a bed and we live all together there. So that was the jump between this. So that's why it was hard because you don't make it. So, and at that time I have like a national scholarship, for sports, but I think it was $100. Like it was not much, but it was enough to, if I have like emergency, I have that saving. So that's why it was hard. And then that's why I put a limit. I was like, until I'm 20, if I become Grandmaster, I will, be thankful, but then I don't see this in long term, right? Like it's really hard. And I think US was never an option for me because they don't, you have to be super Grandmaster to give some conditions. And so when I played here was thanks to a friend who helped me with the same invitation. Otherwise, like, that's why I also didn't play much in the US. But that's how I survived. That's how I did the journey of playing and staying in houses. And
that's incredible. Like you must have had some amazing people obviously supporting you, and thank goodness for that. You would not have been able to do it. Like I love that behind every success story there are some amazing people who have helped them along the way, and it just shows you that without the kindness of others you can't really get anywhere. And I think that's wonderful to hear. But did it not affect your play? Because chess is such a mental game. I feel like I certainly played a lot better when I was more comfortable in life and just feel, more confident in general. So the fact that, you were couch surfing and, you didn't have as much money and you were just, you were fighting for this title, you had this goal and did it not affect the way that you were playing? Like sometimes you'd I don't know, play the wrong move because you're distracted, or you put too much pressure on yourself because you absolutely needed to get this certain result. Like, how did it affect the way you played your game?
It was, I was talking this with Jen, that, mental health now is in another field, right? We talk about mental health, I learned many terms. Back then it was tough. Like, there is something that I explain to the girls now, to the chess club that I have in Colombia. Is, when you play a physical sport, you yell. Colombia, and like in London or in England, football is soccer. Football.
It's football here.
It's football.
It's not soccer. It's football.
It's football. Okay. it's our passion. But then I explained, you yelled, if they hear you made a mistake, you're like, but we just, you made a mistake, and everything goes to your mind, right? Like,
you have to keep it in, and
you have to keep it in, and with no knowledge of don't treat yourself bad. Then it's a whole loop of going back to your mind, treating yourself bad. So it was really tough. For me, it was this double edge, because I was so passionate that I wanted to be the Grandmaster, the first one. But at the same time, I have the mental preparation. I didn't have the psychological preparation. So when I made a mistake, I was so hard on myself. And it was very interesting because for years, depression has in many shapes, but I didn't even know. But that loneliness, because you have to sacrifice that. I mean, it's hard to have a stable partner, right? It has to have a stable relationship in all kind of relationships, right? Even with your friends, with your family, you have the privilege to have great people who believe in you and help you, but it's very temporary. You meet them and then you leave, right? So it was tough. It was really tough. But I think the desire of the dream of becoming Grandmaster, it kind of overcome those ones, right? I didn't even, as I said, I was so sad so many times in the hotel, didn't go. It's like clearly I'm developing this it's loneliness, anxiety, and depression. But it was not even passed to my mind, right? But I feel that that's why it's so important to have a dream or a goal or something that you can keep that passion going. And that was what I was excited. Chess is such a lovely game too that you can see, wow, you are playing a little bit better, but sometimes you're playing so bad. It's like what? So it was this. But at that point, now I'm so grateful because I also give you lessons for life, right? Like I learned that it's not what you want, it's when you actually prepare it, like here, not only technically but psychologically, and you're calm to yourself, and so many things. And then I was 16 to 20. I used to believe that I'm super old, but
yeah, we all do, right? We all but we know so much at that age, and then you look back and you sort of say you're so. Yeah, it's crazy how much we develop, but what you're saying resonates a lot. And I just thinking back to Olympiads and the pressure of what that's like, and you're saying about being in the hotel room, and oh my gosh, I remember the games, like if for example the team needed a win to win the match or something, and I'd have an equal position and try to get trying to get the point for the team, and I mess up and I let the team down, I just get so depressed, and like everyone goes out for dinner or a drink and I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I can't have that conversation because I just and you shy away in your room by yourself, and then you do other things. Like now reflecting upon it, it's so bad for your mental health. But you go back to your room, you're alone, you just overanalyze your game, and you think, oh my god, you beat yourself up about all the results. You look at it over and over again, and you don't speak to people. And actually, it just is so unhealthy, but you don't really realize it. And it's just this chess player mentality that you kind of get into, and you do build up that pressure. And it's crazy how we do that so naturally, and it's normal, but it's so unhealthy.
But that's what I need to change, right? Starting by the coaches, starting by people like you who has a podcast, who has a platform to talk. It's like, okay, this is how we did it. This is how bad it is, right? This is it accumulated for so many years that I went to a really bad depression. So the thing is, when you finish the game or even during the game, what I tell with the little girls is like, I make these analogies like, someone is walking and someone fell. What do you do? And they're kids, so they're like, "Would you laugh?" It's like,
yeah, I would still laugh.
Yeah, and it is true. I mean, it's the first intention, and I was like, "Yeah, that's true." But what do? You just leave it there? It's like, no, you go and then you help the person. So that's what I want for you to treat yourself, right? Like, you make the mistake, take a minute, just to think, oh, yeah, I did a mistake, or the coaches, right, or the people like you that have this platform is, you end up, and it's hard to talk about emotion. I mean, it's super hard, and more to if you what we're saying about the game, that is you and you. That's it, period. And you cannot even express it outside. You have to internalize everything, right? So when you go, when finish, it is for when like chess Olympiads, it's like you made a mistake, and it's having that comfort that everyone needs to talk. It's like, hey, I felt extremely bad. This is horrible, and having like, yeah, you made a mistake. It's part of the game, but we didn't have that, and I think this is where I want to try to tell with the girls now that I hope that we have more grandmaster, more journeys. Is I think the first step above the technical stuff is the psychological stuff too. That is really important. That is, I don't know how much percentage compared to the technical, but it is extremely important, and that's why it's great that you mentioned it. That I mentioned it. That is not something like, because the other problem when we don't share the story, that we believe it only happened to us, right? I'm the only one. I'm not gonna say anything, but this is only happened to me, or I'm the only one that feels like that. So no, it was even to this day it's common, and it's because the game is hard not to internalize everything, right? Like you cannot yell like, maybe when you're playing Bullet, Blitz online, but no,
you can swear till the cows come home and let it all out.
Imagine, it's really one person was like, imagine all of this that you're doing in Bullet and Blitz online. This is what you do in the game. I mean, not the same, but you're talking to yourself, and sometimes so badly for so many hours. Like, just imagine you have someone there and you're just giving, shit all the time. Like,
yeah,
it's not healthy.
It's definitely not. The amount of times I just sit there going, Sabrina, you idiot. Oh my God, how stupid are you? How could you have missed that? Oh my God. And then you just sit there and you do that for a good 20 minutes and you sink into the whole, and again, that is so bad for you. And the amount of times I just tell myself off during a game and say all these negative things to myself. I wish that, I'd known otherwise when I was playing before. And I think that you mentioned that the coaches have a responsibility. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think it's so important that coaches understand how it feels. And it's something that I know when I started doing coaching professionally again when I was a student, I'd stopped playing for a couple of years and I started playing again because I was teaching some kids and they were going to quite high level, and I just kind of forgot what it was like at that high level when you're playing, the British Championships, or if you're playing for your country or a national level, international level. It's a different level of pressure than playing in a normal tournament. And I forgot what that pressure was like. So I went back and played again in order to be a better coach. So I could actually then relay that feeling of how I handle these situations to them. And I think that's so important. I think that, it needs to be done. And I don't think there is enough people out there who realize it. And I don't know what you think. I think there's definitely added pressure as a woman at events. And I don't know what you think, but I've certainly felt there's a disparity between how women handle things and how men handle things, and the pressure that women are under. How have you found it? Have you noticed any differences between like women and men and the pressure?
Yeah, there is a huge difference, but also it's because there is all this huge topic in chess, women, different, blah blah blah. But it was also because for women, not too many women talk too, right? So now it's changing. We have streamers that are women. We have podcasts. Like you yourself with your podcast, and Jen, Jennifer Shahad, and so many. And that is great because you can see yourself. Oh, maybe I can do something. You see like you see a hope. And then the dispersity is too, because the women community then is small, right? And then we don't talk too much. I mean, in general, talking about emotion is hard by itself, and chess is also very, very, it's a lot of individual work. So it is I mean, there are extrovert people in chess, of course. How many? Not much. It's actually many introvert people that, we like to, have the space. I mean, the game is a game of you talking to yourselves. It's a space. So we have few women. You don't talk too much, and then you start isolated. You have this mechanism of, okay, you go to yourself and you try to solve it yourself. That is the difference when you have a huge community of men. It's not like they talk much, but it's more like, oh, we have more tournaments, we need to let go. And I remember when I was playing in the university, is how I react when I lost. Because what you were saying, I was carrying the weight of all the loss because of myself, because I made it like couldn't win, and the team didn't win. When the guy was like, "Oh, I lost a mistake. Next game." I was like, "Well, like," but it's this responsibility too. Like we tend to worry more, and the same as one of the reasons we leave chess is because the men has this, because they see so many men that they just leave, they can have classes, and maybe they don't earn too much money, but they're good enough. We don't have that many role models that we are like, oh, we need to study, we need to, how we're gonna build the family and this. But this is why I feel like it's changing, having more role models. It's changing by, you can live with chess, maybe, not only as a professional, but you can have classes, you can have streamers, and have other things. So yes, there is a huge difference that I saw there, but I maybe have a lot of hope, but I think that it is changing a little bit. I feel like women at least have that hope that they can be in chess.
So do you think that's why there are it's like way fewer women playing? Because I feel like there's so many different reasons at different levels, because obviously there are already hardly any girls playing compared to boys. So that's one issue right at the grassroots level. But then there are hardly any women compared to men. And I think that, I don't know about the stats in terms of dropout rates, but I feel like there's hardly any women left who play at a professional level, who play solely as their career. Like say, you've mentioned Jen Shahade a lot, who we both obviously really admire, and she's got so many strings to her bow, right? She is an amazing chess player, but she's also a pro poker player. She's also director of US Women's Chess. She's an author. She does a million things, right? So chess isn't just the only thing she does. So, but take the people who are that, like you said, there's lots of streamers out there. Again, that doesn't count. That's a separate, a career now. What about those who are just professional chess players? That is what they do. That is their career. There are so few now who fit in under that criteria. So there are different areas of where there's such a ridiculous male to female ratio. What do you reckon the reasons are, from grassroots all the way up to adult? What are some of the reasons that you think there's so few women playing chess?
I mean, there are many reasons, but it's the same like, women got access to vote, later than men, right? Women got access to study later than men, right? And then just by that, it's like the races start in a different starting point, right? So there are more men, for example, in academia, because it depends on the fields. In chess, when you have the tournaments, when you see the prizes, is the big chunk for just that one, and the women prizes is not even 1% of 2%, right? So just that you start calculating, well, even if I win this prize and another prize, you're barely making it, right? Then same thing, they invite so many men, and the invitations for women is not even 1% of that, right? So it is just, let's forget about the capacity of something. It just a pure statistic. There was actually a very nice article when the quiz Gambit was like, why they have women title, blah, blah. But there was just by a statistic, it's just the population, you are reducing it just by putting the rules. So you're just reducing the population, just by putting this kind of rules, right? Then when you have such as, the sample that you are going to compare is already going to be small. So then that small sample is now, what do you do? How do you survive? Because then you have to give classes. But then if you do all of that, then it's very hard that you keep as a chess player, right? So in that case, I feel like encouraging more tournaments, right? Like putting conditions better for women too. Like if there is a prize X for men, put the same prize for women, right? And there was about why they need this title. It's like, well, we need a space. It has to be earned for so many years. Put the place that, like same thing they start doing in the companies, in some companies now, in many countries, you have to have a percentage of women in some areas of the boards, and in some, like at least in Colombia they do, here in US too. That there is still bias, of course. I mean, but now that they realize that they need to have a woman in the table, now that the table is full of men and one woman, yeah, it's still like that. But at least if you put one and then you bring another one, and this is what I think with chess is like, like the universities I get into the university because there was a president of the university was a woman that says, I'm going to pay scholarships, but you have to have a woman in the team. Right.
So I get the board thing, and because there's a business case for that. They would say that, well, we require diversity. So if we're going to be making business decisions, we want a more diverse group of thinking, and therefore we need to have a woman's point of view because we don't have one. So I almost get that. I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
But no, wait, diversity comes as a second step, right? But before was like, we need some women. And this have happened, for example, an engineer, that we don't have many engineers because they go to a room that's full of men in the classroom in the university, so they leave. They feel intimidated.
Okay, yeah, and then that's, I think, one of the reasons I'm going to bring up within chess. But, as I said, playing devil's advocate, most people would say, and I see this from, obviously normal sport as well, and they say equal pay, is they will say, why do you need a woman's prize? And why should it be the same? Because you are fighting on an equal game, a board to men. Like, that's the beauty about chess, right? That it doesn't matter where you're from, your age, your gender, race, that sort of stuff. It's an equal playing field, unlike a physical sport. So why should women get paid as well just for being a woman? They could still, say if there's 10 prizes, they could still compete for those top 10 prizes. It just means that they are weaker. They're getting prizes for being weaker. And that's what a lot of men would say, or people who are anti-titles and stuff like that. So how would you justify that?
Because it's not only, for example, tournament having good prizes for women, but also having tournament for women too. Because what is happening is we need to increase the population, right? Once you increase the population, you're just going to have more women interested in getting to beach, in getting to improve their skills, and then you just by default you're going to just attract more women that right now we don't have it, right? So what happened if we're a lack of women, and we need to create the strategies to start putting together that it's like when they say, put the woman in the table, seat in the table. Well, but the table need to have a seat for a woman. Otherwise, how can you're going to sit, right? And this is what I'm trying to say with the chess. It's like, we need to create the space. Now, once you have the space, then you can start being more, like Judy Polgar said, well, the coaches need to have the same, I remember she mentions is like, well, the coaches need also encourage the girls the same as they encourage the boys. That's totally true. But before that, I think let's start creating the environment, right? Like when they give scholarships in the universities, don't give all of them to men. I mean, then how do you expect a woman to, give one, at least one seat for a woman, right? That she's gonna bring another woman, and maybe it's not good. Maybe not gonna be one, maybe it's gonna be two, and then if the university just start creating a full team, right? So that's what I feel like is giving this a space. It's not because it's weaker, it's because we, when you are in the house and you need to create a space, you need to create a space. It's not gonna put it in front of that, right? Like it takes time. It's is culture too, right? We are not used to see women doing things that are dominated by men. So it just need to. That's why those initiatives like titles, like tournaments for women, like activities for women, it has to increase. Now, I actually played with men since I was very little, and I think that helps too. But I don't think they are mutually exclusive.
No, I don't think so. I played with men.
No.
Yeah, I played with men too. I agree. I absolutely agree. I played with men, but I don't think I would have still played to the level I did if there weren't separate women's events and separate women's titles.
Yeah.
I think that it encouraged me to keep playing, keep going, knowing that I was of a certain level, or, one of the highest players in the country who was female, that encouraged me to keep going. If I was say, oh, you are number whatever in the country, and it was lower down, it wouldn't be as encouraging. So it's the framing of it. And I think that's why, the girls' tournaments and stuff that you're doing with young girls, encouraging them to come up, is essential, because again, like you said, about the analogy of a woman walking into a boardroom of men, I guess it's the same thing, and even more drastically, a little girl going to a room full of boys who are mean and tease her, is not gonna, that's not the sort of things they want to do. And I felt like this, growing up, I think that I noticed that in the UK, all the women who played, not all the women, but pretty much most of the women, I think our entire team at some point, who still played, had older brothers. And I was like, this can't be a coincidence. It's because I guess older brothers love to tease little sisters. That's what they do. They do that. And so you get a bit more robust when it comes to teasing from boys growing up. So you kind of get used to it. And in the chess world, it's like that. The boys mock you all the time, and it's not easy. And I've spoken to a couple of other women who have quit chess, and I asked them why. And it's either because they hated the teasing, or they hated consistently being hit on at tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, it happens not too long ago. I believe it was the daughter of Priya Kramny, or some. I saw some. I very bad with social media, so I don't have anymore now. Only Twitter, but it's. I saw a comment like, going to a table and the people looking at the body, and I was like, that's the point. That's the point to have. How about having another tournament just for women with good prizes, with encouraging, because that is not acceptable, right? Like, and it would be very naive to say, "Oh, we're just gonna change it." We just say, "So no, it's just gonna take time, because it takes out for the men to, for men to. This is." Maybe this is what we used to do, but now it really does not how it should be, right? So it's just giving the space by promoting just only a safe place for women, I think is encouraging. The titles, I mean, if I didn't have the titles, I would probably not get the sponsorship, right? So having that, having this, when they do the initiative for the scholarships, have in mind that, well, put the percentage of whatever, but put at least one seat there for a woman, right? Like when I do the projects in Colombia, before I do any donation for a project, it's like, it has to be 50% woman. I mean, regardless, and it has to, well, in my case, it has to come from like kind of like class 1 and 2. That was where I grew up, like low income families. But that's also how you start promoting too, right? Like, it's if you start creating those spaces. Then you kind of start being more rigid with like, well, you're gonna earn a title like a man, okay, yeah. But then you create an environment that gives you that, right?
Yeah, and you've got more women who can actually go for that, as opposed to
getting it. And the competition increased. I mean, it has to, because I have to remember what was this article. Was a statistician. I study computer science, but my level of statistics is not as like PhD. But it's very, when I read it, I was like, well, this makes sense, because you're comparing a population which is extremely low. Like the number of that sample is extremely low. So it's very hard to start comparing with whole different population, right? Now, if you tell me that you increase this population, and if nothing happened, okay, then something is wrong here. So if we have X number of tournaments for women, we have blah blah blah, and then when you start, well, these women can play at the same level of someone that doesn't need to worry about money, can just worry about the chess.
Yeah, and I think that, I think it was Anna Cramling I definitely saw something from her who did say something about it, and or I think she was, either backing up someone else who said something about that. But they were saying, you don't get that women go to a tournament and they have to play under the added pressure of having men say inappropriate things to them, and it's very difficult to play a game while they're doing that. You can see people coming over to the board, looking at you, staring you up and down, or trying to take a glimpse down your top if they can see, and you can see them, and it's so disgusting. And I remember
there was not too long ago, there was a person from he used to send letters to women, to masters, and send pornographies, and
yeah.
I mean, this happened like 2 months ago, something like that. Like, it's ridiculous, right?
But this men don't get the same thing. Well, maybe some men do, but whereas most women who play chess have this problem. And my dad used to tell me that, one of the reasons that as I grew up into a teenager, he used to make sure he was at tournament halls with me, is because of how scared I was sometimes that I'd finish a game and the man would be like, "Oh, should we go analyze this in my hotel room?" And it's like, I'm a teenage girl, and that's what he says to me. And obviously it's not everyone, but every tournament you go to, I'm pretty sure a woman has had a story at every single tournament without fail. How many men can say the same thing? So that's why I feel like the conditions that women play in are very different to how the conditions that men play in. They don't get it. Like, it's a totally, you have to think about, I have to make sure when I play, I want to dress properly and make sure I'm not showing, too much in case people come over and just.
The story we were saying, right, I was just double checking, and it's, there's a person sending pornography to Russian female chess players, sending condoms, sending things about kids. It's like, what? And then it was good that the story came out, because it just showed what we were saying. Because we don't share the story, we get so intimidated. I said, well, maybe it's only happened to me, and then you don't tell it, and then you realize that it happened to so many women, same person. And this is where, I mean, what you say, the men, we cannot say nobody have this, we don't know, but I can tell you for sure that so many women, we have had a really bad experience in not one, in so many tournaments, right? And it translates to, well, it get tired. Like, you don't want that environment. You don't want to start saying, like, don't look at myself, or don't treat me like, do you get it? Or, like.
It's also really scary because you said, people don't want to say anything, but it's like the Harvey Weinstein story, how, this guy of power, abuses his power to take advantage of women. But it's the same thing in chess. And so many women have had horrifying experiences, but they say they're too scared to come forward because the guy's a grandmaster, or the guy is important in the chess world. And if they say anything, they will no longer get opportunities to play for tournaments, or they won't get invited. And it's really scary that this stuff is still allowed to happen. And there are situations where men have done highly inappropriate things. It's been reported, and people won't do anything because they're scared of ruining that guy's reputation. And I cannot believe that this stuff gets swept under the rug. Like, again, in this #MeToo environment, in this, all that stuff, it gets put in the media and people say something about it, and then other people come out. But it's never really been done in chess. And I think that someone needs to come out and explain some of this stuff, because look how many women, how many fantastically talented, amazing chess players have actually quit chess because of the way they've been treated and the environment that it is. And something needs to be done about it, otherwise it will never change.
Yeah, and it translates to, for the little girls, is the bullying scenario that they enter too, right? So they go, and what they see is like, well, there are too many boys, and they feel like they do not belong. And I saw that same pattern. I saw that in computer science. So they saw, like, so many men, and then you feel like, well, maybe this is not for me. And then they leave, right? And then the numbers start dropping out like significantly. So that's the idea, to start creating those spaces where they feel, well, you're not the only one, so you're not an outlier. You have more people, you have more girls, and then the same thing escalate when you go to a tournament, you have a safe place. When you say, if someone came up, it's like you go and support, like including the men, that has to be there, open and like, okay, even if we did this before, now this is not how we should do it. Starting by language too, right? Very just by words. We need to change, right? And I think we are changing, and again, that's what we are changing. These platforms, this podcast, these people, these women, and that's where it needs to change.
And you've mentioned all the girls that you're teaching and stuff at the moment, and I love that. I think more people like yourself and like Jen and all those people who are taking a bunch of young girls under their wing need to be around. Like you're saying, that you mentioned earlier, we don't have many role models, and that's true. Like we have Judith, like she is obviously the best, that people consider her to be the female goat of chess, right? And everyone respects her, men and women alike, they respect her, but she is an anomaly in that sense. There were not going to be many Judiths out there, but there were tons of other fantastic, strong female chess players who could be role models, but maybe they're not given the opportunity to kind of give back, or they don't know how, or again, that imposter syndrome kicks in with women, because it's way more common in women, that they're thinking, oh, well, what can I do to teach? I remember thinking that when I remember asking Ivanka Huska, who's now everyone knows, she does a load of commentary, right? I asked her, it was probably 15 years ago, I think, to come coach at an event for me. I was doing a girls event, and I was like, please, can you come coach? And she was like, I can't coach. She was England #1, and obviously, who am I going to ask? I went straight to the top. I was like, I want to have some female role models in our country. It's like, Ivanka's, and she's like, I can't. What? Why are you asking me? And she was genuinely surprised, and I was like, are you joking me? I was like, you're a natural role model. She's really sweet, she's really lovely, and she was, and I remember the first couple of events she did, she was terrified. She was like, and then she was asking me for advice of how to coach and everything like that. And it's amazing to see now she's grown into her confidence, and she is a role model to so many women out there. But maybe if I didn't push her though, and I didn't ask her to do that, she may never have been able to inspire all those hundreds and hundreds of young girls that she has done now, and may not have the confidence to do that. So I'm so glad that came out of it. I think that more women need to do it and just have that confidence. They need someone else to tell them, you are actually awesome. Please, can you do it? And seeing you do that is amazing. So I want to hear more, I guess, about what you're doing and how you're inspiring the young girls, and what's coming up, and what are your plans?
But just a comment to what you said. I totally agree. I remember I applied to scholarship in I got a scholarship in Google because I wrote an essay saying that because it really translates to women in tech, right? You have CEOs, but most of them are men. And when you have a woman CEO, it's so untouchable, right? Like it's like Judy Pollard is like, how many like the CEO of Yahoo was in Google before, then the CEO of IBM, but it was like 2, and then other companies. So my point was that it resonates with you is we need to take pride of the excellent women that we have. Yes, like Judy Pollard, and talk about the history of women in Georgia, what they did, Nana, so many great women. But also we need to start encouraging the person that is there working with the community, the person that is there, having a chess club. And not too many women teach chess, but the one who teach, they are amazing. And we have to encourage what you did, because that's how we start changing the society, right? Like, it's probably you could get tons of men also there to coach, but give the opportunity to a woman. And if they cannot, but usually we feel like, I'm not prepared. That's what the push that we need, right? So for people out there is, not necessarily we have to have this woman grandmaster or international master or whatever master, but that woman that is teaching helping that community, give a voice to that woman or invite that woman to another event. And I think that's where that's where the community start growing and start changing, because everyone is doing something in their own way, and we just need to give that, extend that voice. So on that lines, so my goal was, well, I want to create a foundation in Colombia, but right now there is no time. There is, but then I was like, well, I can start. So then I have like a non-profit. So what we do, we go to the schools and we give the same. This is like my first job, but this is a second job that doesn't pay, but take too much time and energy. You have to do it. So right now it's not sustainable. And that's and that's great, because I know what I need to work on. How can I make this sustainable? But the idea is, so I go to a school, pay, I sponsor everything. So someone that goes there, the books, the teaching and everything. And then just teach chess as an educational tool. But then now what happened is, if someone wants to keep going, then I kind of recruit them and then put them in the chess club, in the chess nonprofit. Because at the end, you mentioned, right, it's just, you need to study. It's many hours, right? But what I want to do is, I have seen chess, how powerful it is for education. So once you have that, it's already a win. You don't need to be Grandmaster. I mean, just by taking the skill that chess is given, that is already a win. Now, if you want to start changing a little bit the life of one person or two, well, I can also help with that, right? Like you can try help in the chess club. We have like teachers coaches that I pay, and then that's kind of the goal. The idea there is working in communities, low-income communities. I'm more into girls, so when I try to recruit, I try to ask more to girls. But that's what it is. There is a chess club called Formando Talentos. That's what I have. That this year I have to do all the social media, because for me it was something that it's coming from my heart. I don't want this. I do this, but then I realized, well, I need to start telling the story, because more people there. We have amazing story that one of the coach now is the mom of one of the girls we found 5 years ago. She learned to study, and it's amazing. It's beautiful.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
And one of the girls is getting into the national championships. So this is where now I feel like
you have to shout out about this success. And I know what you mean. And like, it's really difficult. And again, is that a female thing, that we are not as proud to shout out about our achievements? I know it feels weird, but you absolutely do need to, because of the amazing work that you're doing. And like you said, you're inspiring so many kids, and you're giving them the opportunities that you never got when you were in Colombia. And it's so important. And this is another reason why we need more people to keep giving back to the future generations. And I feel like I could talk to you about this all day. And I haven't even got on to like the topic of you working at Apple and how that happens. And I feel like maybe we should have that for a separate podcast, and how to turn your career into the career of a software developer. Sure. I feel like that's something I could talk about all day too, being like women in tech and, web dev and
that's enough. But I do want to mention for how chess helped me is, when you apply to Apple, now that I have done interviews, the resumes are, extremely impressive, right? So if you go by grade, now they changed, all this community changed, like grade is just a number. Because you also get great people, right? But then when I apply as an intern, they see something different in resume, right? You try to look for something different, because, most likely you have the skills, but it's more than that. You have the technical skills, but it's more than that, right? Soft skills. And no joking, I have to present like 10 interviews to get in. But in almost all of them, they were like, so you play chess? So it is a point of contact. And someone, as I say, you don't have to be Grandmaster. It's something that gives you the opportunity to, shape the way you think, shape the way you can visualize. And then in that way, I also changed my life. And even in that professional, right? Like the way you have to study so many companies, so many strategies. Sometimes you have to handle so many projects. So chess help in that career. And then that's how I started up as an intern. And they wait for me until I finished my master's, and then I've been there since then. It's been like 8 years. Yeah. Gosh, this year's gonna be 8 years. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. It's a true like success story, I think. And it's amazing, like you said, how you used chess to do that. And you're right though, because even doing what I do, the amount of people that say to me, oh, you should do like a chess to business course, because even when I go in to help businesses, I am asking them questions about what they're going to do in several years' time, or have they thought about this, and have they thought about this? And they're like, our CEOs and NEDs, then none of them have even asked us these questions. Where have these come from? And I'm like, it's the chess brain of how, you have to think several steps ahead. And you're like, if they do this, what do I do? And you have to take in consideration of all these different scenarios. And so naturally now I am insanely analytical. I'm really strategic. I'm always thinking about what if this, and making sure I'm prepared for every possible scenario, or at least the ones I can see on the board or think about. And that's the things you're going to miss stuff, like you said, but it happens.
Yeah, right? That's what you need, and that's what you need to share. That is a skill that you can develop. But even just a certain level of chess, you start playing, you start developing those skills, right? And that's what we need to share. That's what why it's so important to. You cannot measure chess by your rating or title. You just measure chess, how it impacts your life, right?
And that's how I teach most of my adults, actually. It's less about, because, adults, we have a million things to do. No one necessarily has the time to learn the entire, theory behind a Sicilian dragon or whatever. No one has the time to do that. So I teach practical skills, like I said, analytical skills, strategic understanding, and how you can apply that in everyday life and relate it to that. And I think those are way more important. Like you said, chess is much bigger picture than just a rating and all that kind of stuff. So I love the fact that chess changed your life, and your dad's passion for it. Again, passion is everything, right? You can tell. And I think if you have a true passion for something, it will come out. And your dad's passion was instilled into you, and you had your the work ethic, because it is that combination of passion and work ethic. And you had the work ethic to work your butt off. And I just love that it's like a true, your story is like a true fairy tale, I think, of someone who works hard, as a great person, and deserves everything they got. That hard work pays off. You said you came from a family with hardly any money, but you have loving parents. That love drove you to something. They were supporting you, and you then just worked your butt off to get there. You worked over and over again. When you failed, you didn't give up. You kept going, and you became a chess grandmaster. You used that opportunity to land yourself a dream job at Apple, and here you are, giving back there. It's like the perfect story for me. I love it.
No, thank you. It's beautiful. It's, as you said, bumps and jumps. Coming to this country without even knowing English, but I feel now an obligation that I have to help. I have to. So many people help me that now I can't close the eyes. Right, I have to be there, be involved, and that's what I'm trying to do. We have also this Friday casual meetings with the kids. They have to. That's what you're saying is. Chess has to be a medium. So when I meet with them, they have to share one thing they learn from chess and one thing they learn from life. Because that's the idea. The idea is we have to create this environment that chess cannot be also everything, right? But it can be a medium that brings to many things.
Yeah.
So
I love it. And as I said, talking to you is super inspiring. And I want to know, where can people get in touch with you then? Because you said you're not great at social media, but you still have Twitter.
Yeah, I'm gonna change that. I need to start having tips how to start with this on social media. But I have this the Twitter that is Nadya Ortiz. It's not only Nadya Ortiz, and the Twitter. And this year I'm gonna start putting more information there. I don't like to be the center of something, but I realize the same thing with social media. It's a double edge. It can also bring community. I am very open to help. Because of the work, it's hard with the time, but you can send me an email. I always reply maybe a little bit later or something, or LinkedIn. And I would be more than happy to help if someone needs help. And thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm not in the chess community as a player, but now I feel like I have met wonderful women like you that doing a great job for the community. So thank you for inviting me and for the work you do.
Oh, thank you so much. And, the pleasure's all mine. It's been amazing. And I can't wait to have everyone hear this and be inspired. So thanks again. I'll put all your contact details in the show notes so people can get in touch if they need to. And thanks everyone for listening. It's been amazing having Nadya on the show today. But thanks to all the people who regularly tune in. Your support, as usual, is amazing. Please remember to like or subscribe. It will really help reach the podcast to even more people and get even more people inspired. But until next week, I will see everyone for another episode of No Bullshit Talks.